is Nancy Guthrie a victim of a serial killer? Because the sheriff tells us, Maureen, that he's getting definitely closer. Your thoughts?
Sheriff Nanos?
Yeah, he says that he insists that investigators are, quote, definitely closer to nabbing a suspect.
I believe everything Barney Fife says. He never contradicts himself. He never says things that he should be keeping close to his vest. Initially in the immediate aftermath of her disappearance, it was most definitely a homicide. And then like 2 weeks later, he said he definitely believed she was alive. I mean, I really wish that the Guthrie family had been able to just fully expunge him from this case and hand it over to the FBI and leave it with them. It would be extremely rare if this were the work of a serial killer. I did think about Israel Keyes, who I wrote about extensively in American Predator, because he did a crime like this where he took two elderly people from their beds in the dead of night. And that case was cold for years until he confessed to it. But I think it's so rare, Phil and Dave, because the effort involved in moving a very sickly 84-year-old woman from place to place, alive or dead, is so dangerous. It exposes you to being caught at any given time. I'm sort of the belief that it's the statistical likelihood that it was somebody very close to her or who was known to her who did it.
Well, most murders are, Dave. I mean, that's we all sometimes it's not as complicated as sometimes people's imaginations can make it out to be.
Yeah, I think it's been so frustrating for all of us that with all of our technology, that we still aren't that close to making an arrest. I know that there's some information about the DNA on the gloves, but with our technology, you would think it would have happened sooner. And that's where the CEO of Ring comes in, because he generated controversy because he was saying if there were cameras everywhere, if they had more video, we would have perhaps caught the guy by now. And you had all these folks on Reddit who jumped down this road saying, oh, really? If only we had universal mass surveillance? But what do you expect the Ring CEO to say? He's the CEO of a company that provides surveillance. And so, yeah, that's like, duh. Like, if Coca-Cola said, if everyone just had a Coke and a smile, we'd be a better world. Yes, that's what you're supposed to do. You're the CEO of that company. You're living your gimmick. So I actually think, and by the way, he's right. You would have to give up a lot of privacy. But if there were cameras everywhere, we would catch criminals. But we decided not to go that far. It's a trade-off in our world.
Well, to your point about how with all of this technology, they're still this far away, it seems, from apprehending a suspect. The thing that's interesting and unique about the topography there, and it's pitch black at night. I understand, Phil. You can speak to this better than I. You were there for a week. There are no street lights in Nancy's neighborhood. It is under the cover of darkness. But most Americans do live in a post 9/11, the equivalent of a surveillance state. Mm-hmm. Many criminals are apprehended based on facial recognition. That is something that we all got very comfortable with after 9/11. So I think that's why I think that this had to be somebody known to Nancy, because only somebody of that area would know that stuff. Would know. Well, even if the nearest neighbor, who's maybe an acre away, has security cams, they're not really going to pick me up in the dead of night. Nobody's really got enough illumination in the dead of night. And also that some of those ransom notes were sent to local television stations, not national ones. Again, you have to think, well, who knows what the local affiliates are? Only a local.
That's right. And by the way, you talk about the darkness. It is pitch black out there at night. There's ordinances and laws that deal with light pollution, right? That are aimed at keeping it dark out there. And of course, this is the downside to such a law or regulation, is that it may make crimes more difficult to solve. But to Dave's point, I get where the CEO of Ring is wanting people to buy more surveillance video equipment. I get that, but I also understand that we can't make that final leap because we have so much surveillance already that it just seems to come across as a little bit unseemly for him to be saying that we need to go into such a dramatic surveillance type state. But before we move on from Nancy Guthrie, while we've got you here, did you notice that Savannah Guthrie has made an appearance back at the Today Show now? We have video of her, by the way, that we can play while we talk about it, which is Savannah back at the Today Show. Did you hear about that?
Yes, actually, we are talking about it on today's episode of The Nerve. We've been covering a lot of the goings-on at Studio 1A, and this, I think, so she showed up back at the studio on Thursday morning. She did not return to air, but she went to the studio. She was in hair and makeup, which I think is a healthy sign. I think she is beginning to make it known that she's sort of setting her own pace, but she will probably be coming back to her chair, which I think everybody in America would be very happy to see. Life must go on. It seems to me also an indication that Savannah has been told by law enforcement, we are not close to making an arrest. You can stay here if you like, but it's not going to do any good. She's got young kids. She's got to return to life as best she can. And I think this is a very interesting development because what it's going to also kick up, just in terms of like the power plays over at Studio 1A, they're all wearing their yellow ribbons for Nancy and they're all expressing their like very gooey emotion about it. But really, they've been jockeying for Hoda's chair. We talked about this on The Nerve, and I talked about it in a column for the Daily Mail. We had reporting from Inside 30 Rock that the minute Savannah got on a plane that Sunday, that it was reported her mother had gone missing, her colleagues were taking closed-door meetings saying, you know what? It's really unprofessional that Savannah's left and that we don't know when she's coming back. You should hire me and put me in that chair. It's another crime scene over at the Today Show.